Okay, let's get this underway. Of course, an ad break's going to start. That's helpful. So if I have that, and we have the topic consumer. Yeah. Can do that. String deserializer. Maybe it is displaying no. Hi, Emporium guy. How you doing? Assuming you're not stuck behind ads. I apologize. That's not. Nice. How do I do? Oh, yeah. No, I do this now. Just got to work and my weekend finally done. Nice. Nice. Maybe a great weekend. So, abstract, task, delete. So this is public virtual task, delete async. We might not have a need for this one. So we don't want to make every consumer implement this. Although, that being said, that forces us to implement that. Now we need to do that there. Because now the API is... It's interesting. So, to share my thought pattern. So what I'm working on today is I'm going to try and finish up this. After stream yesterday, I did test the other pieces. I got them working. So the producers will produce a delete message in all cases. So the outbox is working, it's producing delete messages. Everything's working correctly on the producer side. So now I'm testing the consumer side and making sure that I can consume a message. So everything comes down to this topic consumer, right? So every message comes through this, a copy of this. We subscribe to the topic, and then we list the messages, and a thread is spawned for every list a receiver I have. In here now, when we get a null, this message is empty, and I want to be able to, and know that that's an indicator I'm going to delete. So I just need to pass the key in, right? I'm saying delete async, which does, from the receiver perspective, allow me to clearly define, hey, by the way, here's a delete versus a receive. So the API from that perspective is kind of clean. But what I was just doing there was in the not the string deserializer, the event receiver. Yeah, the event receiver, which I probably need to break out into different classes, by the way. This event receiver implementation, this abstraction, forces you, when you create an instance of an event receiver. So an event receiver might look like receivers. It might look like this, right? So you have the event receiver, blah, blah, blah. But it kind of, because it was an abstract method, it forced you to create a receive. Well, now if you are... So I've got two choices at this point from a design perspective. I'll leave that as abstract, which means that when you create a receiver, you're responsible for creating... You have to make this method. but I leave delete as virtual so you've got it as optional, or I make them both virtual so you can define, the delete and the receive in the same event receiver for the same event, right? As you need. So if it's not gonna, if you don't care about the deletes, you need to subscribe to the deletes, then you don't need to handle them. And this will get called even if a delete's sent to you, you just return it, right? So a delete would just get ignored. But if I make this, but by doing that, I allow you to create an event receiver that does nothing and it won't complain. Whereas previously, if that says abstract, right, you have to receive the thing. I mean, it's kind of reasonable to do that though, because you would always want to receive it because there's no point in deleting if you don't have a receive, right? So maybe, yeah, maybe we do that way. Maybe we do it that way. So you always have to implement the receive. There's no choice. So, you might appreciate the stream title a little bit. Am I overcomplicating this? The last couple of days, I have had multiple sources. Um, sorry. Hello, Manoj. How you doing? Sorry, my daughter texted me at the exact same moment. So over the last couple of days, I've actually consumed a few podcasts and articles, etc., and heard from other people about other opinions on overcomplicating software. Whether it be talk of team sizes, whether it be talk of when you should use certain approaches, etc. And it dawns on me that when I started doing this, right, my intention was primarily to build something cool and build something the way that I would love to develop software. That being said, it's to the point now where it's kind of big. And for one person, that's a challenge. So the stream title kind of plays off that little bit of self-doubt as to, am I making this more complicated? Is this more difficult because I'm using what I'm using? No, it is more complicated. There's way more moving parts. There's way more pieces to go wrong. If I'd built a monolith from the start to prove this idea out, I would have had something by now. I'd have probably been a lot further along because I wouldn't have had to deal with messaging and I wouldn't have had to deal with integrations and data discrepancies and tooling and all those sorts of things. I could have built an application a lot sooner. But is that what I want to do? Well, I'm not rushing to market with this product, right? I'm not trying to get this to make me millions of dollars. I'm building this because I have a passion for the concept of improving that, streamlining that process of gathering requirements, getting to the actual software you want to write. I care about that. I think it's really important. I think we still do so badly at it, at defining what we want and then how we're going to deliver it. We kind of merge the two things. And I was talking with Dota last night and in Discord about this, and it just kind of got me churning a little bit on it. But we kind of merge these two things like they need to be together. And so I have a genuine passion for trying to improve this process to try and make developers' lives better. At the same time, I'm building software that is a lot more complicated than it could be. But if I was to release this tomorrow as a monolith, as a traditional monolith, and it actually became a good thing, it became something, the work to change that after the fact, I think, would be even harder. So I keep asking myself, am I overcomplicating this? Is this, and the answer is yes, I am overcomplicating this. I am making it more difficult than it needs to be. I could make it a lot simpler. Morning, Delta, by the way. But I don't care. Quite simply, I don't care. I don't need to hold, again, my entire attitude towards other people. Do software the way you want to do software. Maybe I'll learn some lessons that I haven't learned on by doing it this way, and I already have, obviously. But I'm also not building a real product right this second, right? I understand where I'm overcomplicating it. I understand where it's more difficult because I'm doing X over Y. I do understand. I'm just gonna keep asking, am I overcomplicating this? Am I doing more than I need to do for any given task? And right now I don't think I'm doing more than I need to do. I think I'm doing enough to get it working and continually adapting the code as needed to the changing requirements without sacrificing the quality of the code, I feel. And I think that's the more important thing. So yeah, I wanted to share that because it's funny that I've had several different sources do that recently. Nivek Dev, thank you very much for the raid. Welcome in. Hope you are well. How was your stream? What did you get up to today? Do I follow you? I believe so. Angular. Nice. I do follow. Yeah, various things from doing some analog to answering senior Angular interview questions. Nice. That's cool. I'll have to check that out. I yeah, I've actually never interviewed for anything related to Angular, but I've done Angular stuff for 8 or 9 years. Essa, hello. Welcome back. It's been a while. I hope you're well. This project is not very complex. It consists of many parts and loosely connected projects. Monolith is an architectural choice. Modular monolith is an architectural choice. I don't think this project could be a monolith. It started well and it's progressing well. Thank you, Essa. I appreciate that. Appreciate the thoughts there. What are you up to? Okay. So I'm trying to get back to actually being able to build the UI. Over the last couple of days, I've been working on requirements. So this is a project management planning app. And basically my goal is to create a tool that will help developers or development teams better identify requirements, better track changes, better track updates to things like stories, etc. Right. So the other day we were working on requirements and being able to delete a requirement, which triggered a cascading effect through the system of I didn't support a delete in Kafka yet. So when you do something, it's probably useful to show this. When you perform an action on the client, the relevant API, which in this case is planning, needs to do something, which is delete that requirement and then publish an integration event. But an integration event, as far as Kafka, how do you send delete. I'm not using Kafka as a message bus, so I can't send an event that has the type of delete on it and has the previous data or whatever. I'm going to send null on that key of that object. So I'm deleting this planning item, right? Or deleting this requirement as such. So I need to support that. So I have a Kafka library that is I've built to support this project, and this is open source. This is available on my GitHub. And I'm modifying that library right this second to handle that delete. So when we can, yesterday I focused on the producing side. So the producers now can support delete. So in the actual code where we go to do the requirement deletion, this will now, once I get this library updated, it will do this. So I'll be able to do publish delete, and it will deal with that. This is just publishing the planning item. That's fine. So yeah, that is all so that I can do this one line of code basically. But so in the consumer, when the consumer receives the event from Kafka, it's going to have no message value. So I know that it's the delete versus a receive. And then what I'm doing is building out these components to do that. So yeah. It's been a so ultimately the goal of this is actually to be able to put a trash can next to an item on the screen and hit it and have everything work and update all the relevant components. So hence the stream title, by the way, because I'm just reflecting a little bit based upon several conversations and uh, YouTube videos and whatever, all kind of combining. I'm really struggling with the words today. Converging, I suppose, in the last in a very short period of time to say, oh, you're overcomplicating this. You're one developer. What are you doing building a system like this? Well, I'm building it for the future, not for now. I'm building it so I can change it. I'm building it to demonstrate you can do this. And here's why it's complicated. My little finger was broken. Oh no. I think a good programmer who joins your team will understand and adapt to your architectural structure in a very short time. I mean, that's always my goal. I think that from a development perspective, you should be focused on how do you bring people into your team? How do you make it so that the code is simple to get into and change? And I think that's something we often forget. We kind of focus on our understanding of it and we do complicated things. Now, there are complicated components. Right? Those are expert level components of the system. They are supporting pieces. They should not be primary pieces. Most of the code in a lot of systems is basically take data from in web apps anyway. Take data from screen, do something in background, display data. Right. That's the cycle we fall into. So if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to share. You're more than welcome to. I'm not looking for someone to say, oh, just to validate me. I'm looking for genuine feedback, genuine thoughts and opinions. If you want to provide them, that's entirely. I'm open to conversation about the project. A new project will create a similar structure as a modular monolith. Nice. I think it's once the pattern's in place, I don't think it's difficult to manage this. I think there's a lot of code and it's going to get more difficult. But with every feature that I add, opportunities for new things appear. Still haven't got my head around vertical slice. Though again, because I don't study the architectural styles and try and build maps to an architectural style. This is trying to be at least aligned with clean architecture, right? Because we went through that effort several months ago. Yeah, yeah, it's I find it ever harder to try and align to a specific way of doing stuff. Mainly because once things change, you end up um, messing with that pattern anyway. So let's get this event consumer. So the way this is meant to work now, right? So we have the receive is async. We should be able to do public override delete async. And then this should do console.writeLine deleting key. I think I might change back to double keyboards. I'm using the same keyboard and mouse. I've got a Logitech Wave Keys keyboard and vertical or lift mouse, and it supports different devices, right? Because it's got the little adapters. And I use it for Mac stuff and Windows stuff, but it means I'm constantly pressing the command key, which is the Alt key on Windows, and yeah, it's driving me crazy. So let's start this consumer sample up. Let's see if it actually consumes anything. What I want to see is some deletings in the console log. There you go. I've been PHP'd. There you go. But it is now processing the messages. It's processing the receives. It's processing. So again, events, some other values. So it's posting the information, right? And it would have posted the key. So we are, if I knew how to do development properly, because, you know, that should have been the way I did it. So there we go. We have our consumer, we have our producers. So basically, if I run this project, so if I run the SQL outbox, every one of these should run and not fail. And then I should be able to run the consumer and have that consume. So this is an implementation or how do you produce? How do you describe this? It's a supporting library for using Kafka with .NET, right? There are a few others. Um, I'll be honest, I didn't know about them until very recently, so I didn't even think to use anything else. But I kind of like building my own supporting pieces for this. So when you see the word receiver, what you're seeing is the receiver is a consumer that is wrapped in my code that then will hand you the message. So it's just a level that abstracts the the Kafka consumer away from you. Yeah. Amir, hello, how are you doing? Hello, thank you. I want to ask you, I am a student and start learning developing the WPF application. I graduated a week ago, so I want to know, is WPF a future or I have to go with cross-platform? Um, is WPF, I mean, WPF's been around for a long time. There's still a lot of it out there. I mean, you've still got um, the skills are transferable, right? Between I haven't done specifically WPF. The last time I touched anything remotely close was pretty much Xamarin Forms, right? Um, but there's an awful lot out there, and you look at things like what's it called? I'm not talking about Maui, but I mean Maui is still a supported technology by Microsoft, right? Instead of WPF. But again, the skills are easily transferable. It's not like you're going to end up with um, no ability to work in Maui or no ability to work in what's the other technology called? What's the brain? I'm having a bad day for recall today. I apologize. Um, It's confusing me. Um, uh, I know at the moment I see it. Yeah, not Flutter. I mean, Flutter's interesting, but that looks like Microsoft, but like Google are kind of moving away. Oh, it's um, what's it called? Avalonia. There we go. Avalonia. And just for reference, all I did there was I looked at this. Um, that should post to YouTube as well. Um, I mean, as a developer, you can learn new skills. So I honestly think in school and in your early career, you're not you're not necessarily learning one thing. You're learning how to learn things. And transitioning between other technologies, other platforms is still feasible. It's not like you have to, beginning of your career, it's not like you have to say, oh, I'm going to go all in on this technology. I mean, you can specialize for certain, but you don't have to do it. And you can generalize and you can kind of pick up things. And that's why we all have a billion projects in place, right? It's why we all um, start a project and then move on to a different project and do this and do this and do this because we get fascinated by the technology, by the idea of using the technology, and we try and find a practical application for it. We go so far and a new technology comes along and we change directions. And that's kind of, it's a skill set. It's building that skill set. So I wouldn't worry so much about, is WPF something that has a future? I think that skill set transfers, and things like Avalonia and Maui, etc., are things you can transfer to and use with that same skill set, and they'll be easier to pick up. Um, but yeah, just write software. Have you thought about the MVP? You need to call it a V1, else it might never get to prod, since everything is good to have. Have I thought about the MVP? Yes, I have thought about the MVP. Um, so I've had this conversation. I had this conversation 6 months ago with Deflux actually, because he's very much focused in terms of getting something to market idea, right? He's like, you need to not mess, you need to stop overcomplicating this. Onto the topic of overcomplication again. You need to stop overcomplicating this. You need to get this. You need to decide what your MVP is and get it out there. So the problem for me is my MVP would be what, right? Do you know what I mean? Just do it. um, But yeah, I mean, if you have any more questions, any thoughts, anything you want to add, feel free. I'm happy to chat about stuff. Also, there is a Discord if you want to ask for more advice or offline. There's definitely a place for that. That I'm more than happy for you to join in. Um, Planning items plus the developer tasks, whatever they're called, with story points implemented, might be minimum viable. So yeah, the problem is that to demonstrate the concepts I want to hold on to, the ability to see what's happening, the ability to avoid having the developers have to worry about, oh, here's where we are with this, here's where we are with this. The problem is that's a quite large piece. So if I go to the minimum viable product, I'm basically creating a poor man's Jira, which is not what we need, right? So I need to get to the point where my review dates have the value they need. the visibility of the process is there, and the eventing and alerting is at least basic enough to demonstrate the concepts. Maybe it's not all the way there, but it can tell you, hey, this changed, by the way. Oh, do you need to know where this is? So the MVP is a big piece. That's the problem. Well, essentially, yeah, because I mean, I've been starting to put the items into there, haven't I? I've been starting to treat it like I'm actually using it for that process, and so far, it's validated a lot of the things about the stories. I mean, we had that conversation last night, right? About those planning items, those requirements make sense to planning, but each one of them generates multiple stories. So it is working to validate that. Okay, so this is implementing the delete. Implement delete on receiver, update topic consumer to delete based on empty message. So it looks like, by the way, for reference, those null messages we saw in here, the ones that do actually say null, those actually do come through as empty. They are not actually coming in as the word null, which is really good. It comes in as a blank string. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. No worries, Amir. I mean, again, if you have anything else you want to ask, if you want to hang around and you know discuss, the Discord is there, and I'm always open to uh, trying to help where I can. Implement delete and receive update topic consumer to delete based on empty message. Verified with consumer sample. Delete was received. So if you don't implement delete, you don't get it, right? The message will just get ignored, so you don't need to implement it on any given system. So right now, technically, if I build this, it should work, and then there's nothing to change. From my code perspective, I should be able to update the NuGet package and nothing be broken. And this is one of the things that scares me with creating open source software. If you build something and anyone's actually consumed it, then you go and do a change. How do you track that? You just hope that people will be like, whoa, 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 we were using that. So if we go to NuGet.org, we look up TBD developed, right? So I love this number. Right? It's awesome to see a number like that. But then you have to realize that their tooling is downloading this all the time to test things. So these numbers are artificially inflated. So it would be lovely to think that my library has been downloaded 1,300 times, but it really hasn't. The fact there's no issues, the fact there's no way it just works, right? That being said, if you have used it or you have tried to use it, I would love to know. Okay. So let's create this pull request. We need to get this in so we can do a release and get the main project updated because we need this to go to NuGet. So let's have a look at these files just to verify. Clean some stuff up. We implemented a delete task on the sample. We implemented some messages to verify the behavior on the MongoDB sample. Again, I tested these. These all ran, produced messages, which is great. The output sample, the output SQL sample. So ultimately, they're realistically integration tests, right? If I formalize them a little bit more to be checking and validating, then it could actually become a useful integration test suite, so that you could check it out. It uses test containers, so it spools up a SQL server, it spools up a MongoDB as a test container, validates that it creates the outbots, produces the messages. Basically, the messages existing in Kafka is the validation. But if you tighten up these messages a little bit and put a consumer in there, then you could essentially validate these things. So that'd be something that if you wanted to pick up that as a PR, or rather an issue, that would be the one thing that would be very helpful to this project, for anybody else, because it works. But yeah. And again, I'm kind of validating it with Liquid Sky all the time, right? So yeah, but this uses test containers. So topic consumer, we have the changes to the consumer. It's not this scenario, so that's why I put this down here now. So if the message has content but then can't be deserialized, that's a problem. That's log an error out, right? Whereas if it's empty, we're going to just assume it's a delete. We have no validation to that. There's no way of saying that's not a delete, so it has to be a delete. On the publisher side, we formatted the code a little bit. It looks like we introduced the publish async, publish and publish delete async, right? So we modified these, so now the publish delete actually does something explicit, where it uses the null serializer. We formatted the things in events really. We didn't add that in, did we? Was that missing? Yeah. Apparently that's a change that was pending. Null serializer. Again, it's been tested because it's been run through all the different producers. We made the event body nullable. We then update the Mongo outbots, and there's actually a lot of duplication in here that I want to figure out at some point. But yeah, we create the migration for the SQL outbots, which is a modification to the. There we got the event. We hit those. We did those. Again, the same. Again, a lot of this is almost identical. So I think there's some work to be done there. We deal with the publish message versus publish delete message, and then I create all that code to say, oh look, it's not as nested, but then there's a lot more code. So maybe that's not the best thing, but it does do the publish delete. So there we go. So again, if you want to check this library out, this actually is open sourced. It is available. Pull requests. Let's merge the pull request into main. Do I have a developer? I don't have a development branch on this one. I just have main, yeah. Merge pull request. Confirm the merge. That's where it gets scary now. Delete the branch. Main checkout. Main update. So we've merged that. Now we go over here, draft a new release. And this would be, no. Zero point 0.0.12. Once I've got Liquid Sky to the point where it's really where I want to be, then this will get a 1.0 release. Introduce, delete. capability. A delete to Kafka is a null message body with a null message body with a key. Support delete publish delete async method from event publisher extended to outbots support introduce make sure the API there publish delete async. What's the best way of doing that? What's the best way? Code is method from event to event publisher outbots delete because you can what you can do is you can choose not to use the outbots at all. You can just set it up with the publisher. So the outbots is just kind of a what's the right word? So the iEvent publisher hides whether it's using an outbots or it's using the actual outbots. It's the publisher itself. So again, when it comes to naming patterns and stuff, I'm not very good at naming them, but I can implement. Ached DIR, by the way, thank you very much for the follow. I apologize for not seeing that. I had Nuvex's profile card up, which was covering that. So thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. And again, if you're new to the stream, I'm hopefully about to start displaying the actual project. I've been building this for a few days now, these changes. But you're more than welcome to ask questions. You're more than welcome to share opinions and thoughts and ideas. I'm always open to conversation. What are you planning to host Kafka when you go live? Confluent Cloud would be my go-to. The challenge there is, so here's my plan. We're going to spend some time in the near future building out the deployment of this to Kubernetes so that I have a process for deployment to Kubernetes. I'm going to deploy it to some local Kubernetes clusters. I'm going to allow people to kind of tinker with it and test it. At the same time, I'll deploy a small Kafka cluster there and validate that. What I can do with the help of the community is do a little bit of testing to validate what sort of messaging I'm looking at, the number of messages I'm creating. You know, I know it's not a realistic test, but it does give me some idea of what the actual system will do. That will give me an estimation of what it would cost to put this to actual production. Confluent Cloud has a free tier, but that free tier is very limited, considering the number of topics I already have. And it costs per partition of these. So if I'm going to production with this, a topic with one partition is absolutely useless for scalability, right? I need minimum 3 partitions. So Confluent Cloud helps with things like brokers and stuff like that. It abstracts that. You just set up your consumers to Confluent, and they deal with that. But you still need the replication factors. You still need the number of partitions, etc. configured for robust messaging. So once I've got it tested locally and I've got some numbers on it, that will give me a better idea of what I'm actually looking at in reality for, let's say, to customers creating tickets, etc. What sort of messaging does it create? And I can just kind of extrapolate that, I suppose. But yeah, I don't want to get into self-hosted Kafka at all. That is a nightmare waiting to happen. It's very expensive. Confluent Cloud is a cheaper alternative and is scalable to high production needs because it is provided by Confluent. But yeah, that is my plan so far. Outbox update spot delete for both SQL and Mongo variations. Set as latest release. Target main, previous tag. Interesting. Okay. There you go. So that now will kick off this job, which will then publish the NuGet package. And morning mode job, by the way. My apologies. We just need to give that a few minutes to do that. So what does that mean? Well, it means that now once that's available, this method will turn to a right color, and we're essentially good for testing our delete requirement. Kind of. Planning items. We don't support delete. So right now I'm going to continue on my path of naming this after the verb. In this case, it fits. This might become create in the future. Delete. And what's this going to be? I'm getting into a bad habit here of I need to spend some time and make sure I go through and understand a little bit more about the endpoint stuff. Delete the parameters, just identifier. Oh no. That's an interesting one because I have the not using the URL to do that. Planning item. We don't need technically we don't need planning items there. But right now I've got planning items to get to create a requirement. I post it against the planning item requirements. When I'm deleting a requirement, interested thoughts on that? Anybody got any opinions on whether that should be done or whether I should go back to having the, even though I've got no need for that full path because I have the identifier of the requirement. How would you do it? This is going to be iSender. And I'm going to do delete requirement. That. And then this doesn't return. This just returns okay or bad request. There's a way you can map these. I just forget what it is. Okay, so let's go to here. Did you fail? Nope. It says you published. Yeah, fine. License missing. Ooh. Should probably fix that. I'm going to move that off screen temporarily. Just sign in. Manage packages. Published. Yep, they're all published. So let us see. Manage NuGet packages. Oh no. I forgot that part. It's been several weeks since I did that. So let's see if we can do this. Let's see if we can TBD develop. There's our Kafka libraries updated. Again, I'm going to update all of them. Now, if I do that there, does this? Yes, it does. It filters. That's a nice feature. Okay, so we're going to update all the packages. Get them done. That chance. So the first time I did this, I had to publish the package to my local NuGet feed because it took so long for the actual packages to update into NuGet and the cache to refresh, etc., that I just installed them to my local NuGet or my baguette server locally and made them pre-release so I could at least test them. And that is a good way of doing that. This is a long-winded way, and obviously this is risky because if I if people start to consume this library, right, which is why I asked, does anybody actually use this at all? Then doing what I just did there is bad because I haven't validated that it functions correctly other than the basic test. So I got to build a better integration test to trust that more. I should be able to do it, but yeah, it's validating it locally with a pre-release is probably a good idea. Will the application run in the cloud with Kubernetes or will it run in its own dedicated server? The idea would be to go to Kubernetes rather than running application services. So, you know, it's funny that concept seems really far away, but I mean, I've spent a year building this application, right? I mean, I pretty much almost spent a year streaming this application. I think. Yeah, I think I returned. When did I return? I think it was last year. So we've spent a long time. Gilded Rose. Where will Kubernetes be hosted? How will it be managed? The goal right now would be to look at my cloud options and do some analysis of which one is going to suit me. I've got to do some learning before I even get to that point from a DevOps perspective. I haven't deployed Kubernetes to the cloud. There's a few people I'd like to reach out to and ask some questions about that as well before I even know that answer for sure. Again, this application is... Why is that still taking so long? Oh, it's stuck because my local baguette server's not running. It's going to error, basically, because it's looking for this and the tooling doesn't know how to ignore that fact. What was I saying? Yeah, I don't know a lot of things so far. And when I started this application, it was, I'm going to build this cool thing. It's going to be cool. I love building software. Then as I started to think about it more, I'm like, I actually am going to treat this like I want it to become a product. And the more I write the software, the more I realize this could be a product. This is actually something that people do potentially need, potentially want. So that reality of thinking about, okay, well, how will I deploy it? Where will I deploy it? Starts to set in. So I will be reaching out to a few people to ask some opinions on how to deploy the application, how to manage the application, because obviously there's things I've got to do before I even get to that point. I've got to support distributed lock. I've got to support, because I can't scale out the services. I've got to test scaling out the services once I get to Kubernetes. There's a whole raft of things that have yet to come that aren't even primarily software related. They're more deployment related. So yeah. Yeah. Nice. Roger. Nice. I'm genuinely interested to see you go through that experience. I know what I do. Dota and I discussed it off stream in Discord last night a bit. I kind of know how I'd approach it, and I've not looked at the requirements. I've not looked at anything else, but how I'd approach the refactoring at the least. So I have some opinions. Okay, so well, our error went away. That's an immediate indicator that we have some change, right? Let's just validate that that NuGet update worked properly. Okay, it did. It worked. You see baguette locals now appearing because these came from baguette originally. Okay. We'll update the rest of NuGet packages separate. I'm thinking about streaming it tonight. Choose your time. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. But if you stream it from anywhere around 5:30 till 8:30, I won't be around, sadly. Okay, so we don't need a repository here. We just need an event publisher. So again, we've done a lot of different things here. So we created this event, this entity deleted interceptor, which is a stunning name. Basically what this does is if we delete an entity from the database, we can put an attribute onto the entity definition itself. We go here and requirement. We can say, okay, on delete, by the way, publish this event. So the actual act of deleting the record will trigger this event. In theory, we haven't tested this yet. This is the problem with doing this sort of stuff. Some of it needs to come together, and I'm going to find the bugs now. If it works first time, I'm clearly a genius, and I'm perfect and untouchable as a developer. And genuinely not that arrogant, so I know that it's going to fail. What will happen is when I delete the requirement, the database, the interceptor here will check to see if it has a event specified. It will construct that event and publish that event with the data that is being deleted, right? So this is on saving. So it's before it's actually deleted the record. So that data should be intact. Again, hard to test, hard to validate. We're just going to do it. what that means is, from the code perspective, when I go here, it looks like a delete because it is a delete. So this delete requirement, all it does is, do I have a requirement? Yes, I do. Because if you've already deleted it, it's gone. Just delete the requirement. And it means this code stays clean. Frank, how's it going? Welcome in. Those who don't know, Frank is a streamer. Streams generally on Fridays. Building a supporting app for a game, a board game, I don't know how to describe it, a D&D game. And he's very knowledgeable when it comes to the cloud. You're welcome. How have you been? So, to test this, well, let's see. Let's validate builds first. So we don't have anything receiving the delete on the other side, which is a challenge. The problem with this is if I send a delete, because I have a consumer for the event of requirement integration, that event will get received. So I will delete it from one piece, but then the other pieces never know about it. So there's a bit of a data discrepancy problem there, right? You could end up with, if you don't implement the delete, it will just ignore it and move on. So that event will happen and you will never know that it didn't happen because you never knew it. You didn't capture it. So there is some challenges there. Dice and paper game, I guess. Doing well, thanks. Happy to catch you. Yeah, we don't often cross paths, do we? As much as would be good. So, let's build it. Let's run it. Let's run the client. We're not going to implement the UI side of things yet. We'll go into the UI so I can at least demonstrate to those of you who haven't been in here since I've started this. You'll actually see the UI for the first time. Don't forget, by the way, all the videos, all the streams are uploaded to YouTube because I stream to YouTube at the same time. So all 142 of the series of videos are there. They are available to reference. Most of them are 2 hours long because I stream from 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern, Monday to Friday. And on that topic, if next week I will not be streaming from Monday to Thursday because I am away for work. But I will be back on Friday, and I have the day off on Friday, and I will be streaming a community day stream. So I will open up Discord if you want to have a chat, if you want to talk about software, and you want to ask questions. I'm more than happy to do that. I am celebrating. I'm going to say celebrating next week, next Friday. I have been doing this professionally for 25 years, so I think a quarter century deserves some celebration. And it put me in a kind of a reflective mood as well. So I'm thinking back and I'm like, 25 years doesn't seem like 25 years. I mean, yeah, it's a long time. So the stream will be around next Friday for a longer time, probably 3 or 4 hours at least. Discord will be open. We can have a chat if you like, and yeah, if not, I will just carry on programming and chatting away as usual. Okay, so the app is up and running. Let's get to the actual login screen. I have Gran Turismo stream up on the other screen. I try not to actually put it up so I can, I just leave it there. You sign in. So again, if you haven't seen the app, this should show a loading bar, by the way. Okay, so Liquid Sky right now is focused on planning. So we have the concept of planning items, and planning items have a review date. So past due is any planning item where the review date is in the past, right? So yesterday and before. Current is today and for the next 7 days. And then upcoming is anything beyond the next 7 days is there. So we're able to show that. We can show completed items. So we worked on this last week. We got the status, blah, 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 blah. We got the status in there. And we now can filter them out. And this is done on the client, right? We support it on the server, but there's no need for it on the server. So when we click on a planning item, changes to planning items, we can see requirements. So this one is particularly the one we're focused on, updating requirements of a planning item. As a product manager, I'll be tweaking the requirements of a planning item many times throughout its life. Discussions with development teams, management, etc., will yield different additions, subtractions to the requirements, so it's important to be able to keep them up to date. So we need three actions, right? We need add, update, and delete. So we focused on delete to start with. So the ability to remove a requirement from a planning item is necessary because what I deem a requirement when building the planning item may not remain. A garbage can icon should be available to me on the UI. When I click to remove, I should be prompted. So the idea here ultimately is that we can attach a screenshot to this thing and it will show as an attachment. It will also show on the requirement. So UI, UX mockups, etc., can be included and whatnot. And again, if you have any questions about this, please feel free. If you have any thoughts or opinions on it, please feel free to share. I'm open to criticism as much as I am to suggestions. So the concept of this planning thing is these are not stories. These are not actual Jira style cards for a backlog or whatever. These are things that are being planned to become stories. So what we've done is, and I don't have the story piece right, for deleting, there's actually 3 actions that need to be handled for just deleting a thing. But as a product manager, you're thinking of this as an actual behavior. Like, I should see it on the screen. I should be able to click the button. It should ask me if I want to see it, if I want to delete it. I say yes. It goes and deletes it, and it should remove from the screen. And then when I come back into that screen, I shouldn't see it there, right? That's what you're expecting to see. That's the behavior. But to achieve that in the back end is not, you can't just wrap it up into one story, right? So rather than have the planning system, because again, from a planning perspective, these are what they expect, right? Rather than us creating epic in the stories for this piece, we can create the planning item and then, or we will be able to create the stories off of this single requirement. So this single requirement yielded 3 stories, right? Deleting the requirement. So we need an endpoint, we need a handler, we need to publish integration, and we need to publish the delete for we need to publish the integration event for the planning item. We need to publish the delete for the requirement. That's literally what I've just been working on for the past 3 days. Story 1. So that, even though I pointed at 3, that was probably an 8 because I didn't realize all the technical implementation pieces I would have to do. So that's why it's important to talk through these things and discuss them. And that's why I want to do the planning item to kind of generate that discussion before we actually create stories. So in my world, a story can be technical because a story is what the developers are using to build off of. Planning items are not technical. They are very much what the planning expects. And the business understands this. They don't necessarily understand the code aspect of it. So in my platform, technical stories are perfectly allowed. Hi, Not Larvae. How are you doing? Thank you very much for the follow, by the way. Appreciate it. Welcome in. So ultimately, what we're going to end up with is a little garbage can here, and we're going to hit delete. And then it's going to prompt us, and then we're going to say, yep, delete. So we need to, we'll find, I was going to say, we're going to find a planning item with a little less important information on it. Make more progress. Here we go. So we go to make more progress. We can go to here and see the full screen version of that item. That gives us the planning item ID. From there, we can go and find out the pieces. So again, the challenge here is if I was building a CRUD-based system, if I was just building a monolith, this would literally be a call to say delete. Nice and simple. I haven't done delete yet, so that 3-pointer, right? This that I deemed a 3-pointer, deleting the requirement, came with a lot of technical implementation pieces. So I point it at 3 because if all the behaviors are there, this is a very simplistic piece. It's creating some components, it's making sure they call actions, it's done. But I had to build a lot of infrastructure. So this 3 became an 8, right? Now, in reality, I understood the impact of what I was doing there. So a 3 is now more reasonable for this because now the pieces exist. So we took on some technical implementation challenges. But yeah. Okay, so let's go back to what I was doing there. Make more progress. We go and open it up so we can see it. We can get that ID. We can go over here and we're going to go to planning items. Again, if you're new to the stream, feel free to ask questions. Feel free, if you want me to show you something specific, explain anything particular, please feel free to ask. The stream is not about just me coding. If you are finding it productive to sit there and have me on in the background and do your own thing, I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm not trying to make people talk, but I am open to that conversation if people are interested. Identifier equals what? No. How keyboard work? Okay, so we have requirements for this. So select star from requirements where planning item ID equals 2. Okay, so we have a requirement identifier. We're going to open Insomnia. That's completely the wrong project. Liquid Sky, planning items. There we go. We're going to create a new HTTP request. This is going to be called rename delete requirement. And it's going to be delete. Actually, that brings up a point. We made it a post. And delete. So I don't need to stop everything. I just need to stop the planning item API. Everything goes through the gateway. So again, if you are new, this is the way this platform looks so far. So the client is running and it's making API requests. There's a gateway in between. So these different APIs are supported. So from the client, it all looks like one API. But the gateway routes it to the right API. So I can shut down one of these components, work on it, and then bring it back up without bringing the entire system down, which is a definite advantage. So all I need to do here is, in theory, stop the planning items project. Planning items is the API project, right? It's planning here. So that's now stopped. So now I can go here and make that delete. And then we can just restart that particular project. And now we should have 13 running again in a second. So I'm not going to mess around with going. I can go through the gateway. Actually, that's probably the better option to go through the gateway. So if I go to 7285, localhost 7285 is the gateway. However, that does bring up another change I need to make. So the routing for the API is all stored in the all sort configuration in console. So you can see here we have planning items requirements. This is when we're posting a new planning item requirement. We don't have a route for this particular thing. So we create a new route. And this will reload, so it's fine. Let's actually choose to copy that rather. I'll do that. Let's make that we accept delete. And we have API requirements ID. And it goes to requirements. The avalanche of changes. Yeah. Yeah, it's a definite side effect of doing it this way. But I think from a documentation perspective, this is actually pretty clear to document, right? It's not a difficult concept, it's just a time-consuming one. So introducing that route, we need to capture that, by the way, so we can save that. But what I do is I record that in here. And again, I'm just overwriting that. I'm just trusting straight up overwrite because I don't want to differ. The beauty of this configuration is basically it uses console in a few ways. It uses console for storing the key value store. Ocelot is the gateway application I'm using right now. But it then uses console for its service discovery. So all the actual running services are here, and it resolves their IP addresses through here. So it doesn't actually have to store the actual address in the configuration. It just stores a name, so you are pointing it at an instance. So it's kind of nice how it works. Having not done a lot with API gateways and reverse proxies before, I don't know if that's very common, but it is quite a nice setup, the way that Ocelot's working. You okay, dog? Hello, buddy. Okay. So we have that there, we have that there, we've got the route set up. So now we should be able to do API/requirements, and then we need our ID. So let's go to here again, pull the ID. And we do need auth. So we're going to need a bearer token, and then we need to go get our actual token. Application cookies. Nope, it's local storage. Cookies are bad. There's our token. So now let's see how good we are. Do we get here? Question number one. That'll probably load once it actually starts. Do we get here? Question number two. And most importantly, do we get here? Let's see. Step one, check. We got to that part. Step two, check. We got to that part. So now what we're expecting to see is we're expecting dialog should close on create to go away. even if the third part doesn't happen, this should still happen. It's a thing that I've asked to happen. So even if I don't alert the rest of the system, right? So this is an area where data consistency problems could occur because now the source of truth has this data, but other systems don't. And I've gone through this a little bit on stream before. I'm going to need some sort of data tooling to be able to say when I'm populating a new system or I'm building a new system, take the data from this system and construct it for my new system. So it's not unreasonable to believe that in the future there's going to be data validation tools to be able to backpatch or say, yeah, this should be there, that shouldn't be there, etc. I think that's a necessity, honestly. What's a data tool? In this case, a transform, a tool to say, I need to pull data from one data source and put it into a different source. ETL tools, I think, is the more technical. So I'll wait for the ad break. I'm going to wait for that ad break. Being that people have sat here and watched this entire stream and for several days, I think it's only good form to wait until the ad's over. Insert triggers, SPs. I don't want to play with those things. Triggers would be a way of dealing with some of this, but again, then the problem with triggers is you're then moving everything into the database. Reacting to that in your application layer then becomes a little harder. You can look at CDC, change data controls in SQL Server. You can hook Kafka directly into CDC as well. So Kafka can actually consume and produce, I believe. It can definitely produce from change data controls. But I don't like the idea. I never have liked the idea of putting chunks of actual application behavior in the database. This problem is going to be a problem regardless because I have different copies of this data, right? So anyway, ads are over. Let's run this through. So when I run this, the record should disappear. We hope to get to the third item, not a crash. But even if that crashes, this should roll back. So we shouldn't lose the data, but it just won't work. We got neither of the things. That's the worst possible scenario. Ooh. Oh, by the way, did we that's a good point. When we ran the migration, did we update the outbots? That's not nullable. That should have run a migration on that. That's going to trip us up. That's going to trip us up no matter what. And error code using database. This is where I find out I've not permitted the delete. Okay, let's try that once more. You have a 9 to 5 job as well? Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah. And good morning, by the way. Yes. Hope you are well. So we get to this point, but we don't delete anything. Oh, that's better. Okay. Oh, what did that? Oh, what did I just do? Oh, where are you? Where? It got to our thing. Watching for a while, just looking. No worries. Appreciate the look. Constructor. Parameter mismatch on this line. So our constructor parameters. Oh, no. We determined that we had planning ID. We only matched one parameter, identifier. Our constructor has two, ID and identifier. The values, we only have. Oh, what is T entry then? Oh, no. I'm struggling for a project idea. I mean, as far as project ideas go, um, the things in your life that you do that are like for me, I collect video games, right? And or I do some electronic stuff, or I play with 3D printing and stuff. There's other things, um, like maybe it's tracking something, maybe it's logging something, maybe it's turning lights on when you enter a room. That sort of, you know, yes, it's been done, but doesn't mean you can't do it, right? Not every project has to be an original idea that is going to change the world. A project can just be something for the sake of learning. So I often look to things I do day to day to see if I can help. I do karate. What about you know, I, I, I'm just sharing that I've had the thoughts, right? What about a management system for tracking students and stuff like that, right? What does that look like? How do I do that? And yes, it's been done, but how would I do it? How would I approach it? So, and projects can be as small or as large as you need them to be. Now, all project ideas are around LLMs. There's a lot of AI stuff. There is a lot of AI stuff. Okay, so the problem we have here, it worked, right? This item would have been deleted. Now the rollback means that it's still intact, so that's good. The problem is this T entry is I entity. So I entity. I entity has on it identifier. So we said we need the planning item ID and the identifier, assuming that we would get the requirement. We got its lowest form interface, because that's what we actually, if you look at the code, we're going to stop running at this point. We have the information we need. We can pull things up afterwards. So if we go back down to entity deleted, so I understand what's going wrong. I just got to figure out how to deal with it. So here we say get all the entries of type identity. My assumption was that this entry here would carry the type, but it's not, because it's identity. Everything's been generalized down to identity. We don't actually have the type of the thing. So this gets more convoluted, I think. So I'm going to try doing something private void construct the main event from entity from attribute object entry type event type, right? So the challenge here is we need to get this type out. My hope was that that would do that. The challenge now is we do we do this? So let's start putting some debug statements in here. Debugs. By the way, we never did anything. I never wired that part up, did I? So we got diverted. We went on to a different project. This needs to return. What does this need to return? This needs to return the main event. No, it needs to return T event. And we need to do return that. And then that should return. The problem there is this is going to return. Actually, let's see. This one might replace this one, so this is okay. So we might be able to just rename this afterwards, but this should return an iDomain event, and then this is going to return iDomain event that. We'll worry about what can and cannot be cast and done later. This I shouldn't actually hit. This I should hit. And then var event equals that. And then we should do publisher async event. We can async all the things. So if we don't have context, then we just save changes. Let's get out. We don't have this. It's unlikely we don't have a DB context, but we just call save changes anyway, and it will handle whatever it needs to handle. Again, if you're overriding a method, especially one that has implementation, you probably want to make sure you do whatever its default is as well. And again, that's why we call that, because that will actually save. Right? That will complete the save. Does that help? Does that clean that up? Yeah, that'll make that a little bit more readable. That means that to get there, we have to be confident we have on delete, so we're good. Let's just tighten that. And if that fails, then we've got a problem. So that's okay. That should collapse. Okay, let's try. So we don't need to run everything right now, right? We just technically we only need the planning items project. It still has the auth on it. I still need the token, but here I can just start this project up and run it. And this is why in this design I can work on things independently. If someone else was working with me, they could be working on stories. They could be working on other things independent of me, and that would be okay. This is 7162, so we're just going to change that to 7162, and then we don't need the API part there. Let's see how far we get. Okay, so we got to delete. That's good. We got to construct event from entity. So we have a requirement. So this does now know that it is that. So this now, when we get here, should have the information. And that was what we were lacking because the entry here was being inferred, but it was all of identity because that's all we treated the list as. So when we passed it in, it was just an identity. It was generalized. Now we actually have the object itself. We have the type. So there we go. So T entry should be requirement. Yep, it is a requirement. So our values here should be, we have planning item ID and identifier because we've mapped the properties of that entry with the attribute properties that we expect, those strings that we have. And we've said, here you go, here's your dictionary of values. We go and find the constructor, and then we should have two. There we go, there's our two. So we now match planning item ID and identifier, and we then give our parameters, and we should get there. And we now have an event, a requirement deleted. Does it publish? No, it's this one. Did not publish it. But the thing is, our requirement's now gone. I'm almost certain. No, it's not gone either. So that rolled back again. That errored. Big challenge with this is I do not have. Oh, here we go. Entity type requirement trap by point. Change state from unchanged to deleted. Consider using enable sensitive data logging to the key values. Good. Then we'll see the delete. I don't see the delete in there at all. Uh, oh, there we go. Nope. Nope. There's no delete in there, is there? At all. Scroll to end. Okay. So we this worked, and we got an event. We saw the event here, right here. We saw it. Same problem. Educate guess. Same problem occurred. We're now going backwards. So now we have an iDomain event, and we go to publish, and publish is like, oh, I know how to publish it. Oh, well, what's an iDomain event? I have no idea how to serialize this thing. It probably errored in there. And again, because everything's async, it's going to swallow some of those exceptions. So I'm confident this worked. We get T event here, but we don't know what T event is here. We know that it's an iDomain event. So the problem and you'll see this all the way through when you do it, when you're messing with generic code. Once you remove a type, or you generalize a type, to work with generics again, you have to get back to the actual type you're working with, and that's what this problem was, right? Because what I was doing is using generics here, and it's just saying, well, I'm my entity because that's all I know about at this point. I'm my entity. So now by passing it as object, I can call get type on it, and it will give me the real type. So this now works. But here now I've got the same problem in that this is an iDomain event. It's going to say, hey, I'm going to publish an iDomain event, which I think is going to fail because it can't serialize that properly because it's an interface and just crashes. Is my best educated guess. So what we're going to do is we're going to look to the other stuff, because you'll see I've gone through this before, right? So we're going to do await publish event. That will, in theory, let's see. That will, in theory, work. Let's go with theory. And now delete. It's definitely crashing because it's rolling back that record. That delete should happen. We get to here. We have an event. We have a domain event. It is a requirement. There you go. There's our requirement gone. So our outbots should have. Oh, there we go. I was just going to say our outbot should have a message. So we have requirement deleted, no content, right? Which is completely incorrect. That's bad because this is going to be null. Close. We're close, I promise. Did anybody else? Did it? I'm not going crazy. I saw values on those properties, right? It passed those values in. Oh, the problem is now I've got no requirement to delete. This will error now. This is where we end up having to create data for the sake of creating data. You gotta stop. You gotta do that. Hey, Manatonics, how you doing? Welcome in. those things. Sorry. You join us at a crucial moment in development. Do I know what I'm doing at all? Okay, so we hit send. We should hit a breakpoint at some point. There we go. Progress has been okay. We've been working on delete for the last couple of days. We have the requirements. We need to be able to delete a requirement. But it's been quite a engineering journey because there's a whole load of code associated with Kafka and the messaging and all sorts that needs to change to support it. So yeah, it's been a journey to say the least. Okay, so we hit delete. We get to our event here. Does our domain event have data? Yes, it does. It has data. Why aren't you working then? Did you delete my requirement? No, you didn't delete this time. You're just gonna be temperamental. Okay, order by ID sending. That'll probably save me some time. Okay, let's try that once more. Get to delete. Domain event. Requirement deleted. That's a valid GUID. Is it that valid GUID? Yes, it's that valid GUID. We have two. We have that GUID. Messing with me, right? But but we just saw it produce an event. What is going wrong? My best guess right now is it thinks that that object doesn't exist and it's crashing. I don't see any an error occurred. Where's that icon? That's cool. Scuffed. Yeah. Nice. Um, I haven't been there before. Oh, Tentic, hello, by the way. I'm sorry. My apologies. I did not mean to ignore you. Relaxing a bit before work is a good idea. Manatonics is another streamer. Does game development. Is building a game. Um, I need to get developers.stream up and running so that I can let you define what it is you do effectively. Um, and also then shout out people automatically because again, Temtic is also a streamer. Can I don't think I can give shout outs that quick, can I? You gotta wait 1 minute 20 seconds before giving another shout out. Pokemon plus chess. And it's looking really cool. We managed to catch any streams in the last little while, but the artwork is fascinating. The design is fascinating. I love seeing games develop. It just fascinates me. Game development is, yeah. One day I'll find the time to do it, but I have other passions, I suppose. And um this application has very much become my I want to prove to me more than anything um that I can build this, that I should build this, that it does help. Um, if it doesn't, it doesn't. So basically, for anyone who hasn't heard this before, I want to make this a product. I want to treat it like a product up until the point I decide it's not a product. If at that point I say, this is not going to be a thing, I will open source the entire thing for anyone to tinker with, anyone to play with, and anyone to take and use how you want to do it. It is not open source right now because it would be an absolute beast to manage. If anyone had any interest in tinkering with it or using it, it would just not be. Um, there's too much to support. So yeah. Been streaming a little less, made a bunch of progress, and don't have as much stuff I can't work on without tutorial pulled up. I mean, it's okay to admit you're using tutorials on stream. You know, you can, unless it's a video tutorial, in which case watching it is a bit of a pain, but people do that as well. Um, yeah, I love watching games and stuff being made as well. It's also always so cool to see the progress other people make. I just find it like with this project, there's big gaps of visual changes, right? It's a lot of code, and I get it. I get why it's not as engaging. With game dev, you're constantly tweaking the UI, you're constantly changing the behaviors, you're building, and all of a sudden you've got this thing moving around on screen to begin with, or something, and then all of a sudden it's a person. There's an environment. You're building this world, or this you're telling this story, and I kind of like that aspect of game dev. It's very the creative aspect, and it's why my development approach. I've taught myself not to be so freewheeling with development because letting yourself flow with application development is dangerous because you will just create code for the sake of creating code. And you'll be like, oh, I need this, I might need this, I might need this, I might need this. And if you follow down that path, it's dangerous because it can make a lot of messy spaghetti code. With game dev, you kind of need to lean into that a little bit to explore those ideas and explore those things and throw things out there and tinker and change numbers and whatnot. No, I think you could be as rigid, but I think that rigidity comes with experience. And I don't have that experience in game dev, so yeah. Anyway, why is this? So the problem is this publisher here is this library here now, right? I can't debug it because it's an external dependency, which is an interesting problem to have when I am the owner of both projects. Setting it up to debug it would be actually nightmarish because I don't want to swap out dependencies in this application. I need to treat this as a third party piece because it's a third party piece as far as my application is concerned. So, what could possibly go wrong there? Well, from this perspective, the iNotification publisher, notice iEvent publisher, iNotification publisher, iNotification publisher, show contact sessions, um, is this. Sorry. I know it's an outbox in this instance. So that is Mediator outbots can't. Oh, it's mediator. It's not. It's not the. It's not being a. It's not the Kafka side of things. It's the mediator side of things. It's the other library. So, welcome to other open source project. Mediator outbots. Same challenge. I'm not going to be doing deletes through this, right? This is not going to do. Yes, no. This is not going to handle delete. Delete is still a Kafka concern. Validating my own decision there. So this is this interface here. Mediator outbots is a wrapper around mediator to be able to store the messages so that I disconnect processing of those events from the actual thing. What that means is once I've got the event serialized into the data store, Magnetonics, thank you very much for stopping by. Have a great day of work and a happy Friday, and hopefully you have a great weekend. And yeah, thank you for coming hanging out. Temptic, how have you been, by the way? I don't manage to get a lot of your streams because you tend to stream oh no. Very sick. That's not good. I texted a friend yesterday. I was like, "How have you been?" He's like, COVID and then flu." So, ugh. Well, when Temptic is better, Temptic does also stream and is worth checking out. Temptic does work on TwitchBot. He uses Godot as well. Guess what? You don't stream anymore. Flew at the exact same time as an infection. So that suggests that's a problem, yeah. You'll stream again next week. Well, that's good to hear. It's not good to hear you were sick and also got flu at the same time. So that's bad. Oh no, time. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to dig deeper into this. We clearly saw it work once. So there's something going wrong there. I gotta dig into this to understand why that would happen. Why is it doing that? But this definitely worked to some extent. It just didn't serialize the data correctly. So I've got to figure out what's going wrong there. Maybe I pull in the mediator components temporarily just to see them work. Might go back to part-time game dev and part-time overlay dev. I think the secret for streaming is just have fun and do the things that you enjoy. For me, I liked doing the game dev. But the problem is that my brain couldn't cope with the constant switching. And I really, really, really want to get this project to a good place. So I just chose to switch and focus rather than mixing it up. Whether people enjoy that or not, I don't know. People don't tend to give much feedback. I hope some of this is useful. 0 more days till I start work. 10 more days. Nice. Well, that'll be fun. Yeah, you might want to do. You might find you want to do less mixing it up once you start to work full time, because then you'll be, yeah, very first job. Well, congratulations for that. I'm certain that'll go well. But anyway, I have to end. So, wish people would stop ending their streams before I finish up. They need to be raided. We need to find more developers and stuff to raid in the mornings. So, I will finish with there is no streams until next Friday at this point. I am away, unfortunately, for work, so there will be no streams. However, next Friday, we're going to have a community day starting at 7 a.m. Eastern. I'm going to open up Discord if you want to join in, hang out, have a chat about software, your career, anything you want to talk about in terms of this sort of stuff, I'm happy to discuss. I'm only specifying that because, yeah. Legacy code stream. Whatever you want to talk about, if it's software, we're good. We can talk about how we tackle things, whatever. But I will be celebrating 25 years as a professional developer next Friday. So we'll make it a longer stream. We'll make it a good stream. And yeah. And ads. Ugh. So I'm going to have to wait that out now. We'll wait. We'll get a shout out though. For those that are subbed, we can still do the shout out, right? I've got to figure out how to keep track of this context because I have no time to work on this until next week, and it's at a crucial point, which is annoying. I'd love to see this work, but yeah. Yeah, if you're a .NET developer looking to do app dev at this time of the day and you're thinking of streaming, start streaming. Let me know. We'll hang out for a while, watch the stream, and then I'm happily going to raid people. I'd love to support people streaming. I mean, there's a lot of game devs, right? I get that, but it would be good to raid app devs. 25 years, all the very best for the next 25. That sounds scary. I'll be 69 years old in 25 years. Oof. Yes, I will be. That will be terrifying. Um, oh, come on. I'm trying to find, well, while the ads were on, I was trying to find someone to raid, but it is not someone I have raided a lot of. So you can go see. Biggs will be finishing soon. Oh, Frank, did Frank go live? Yeah. Yes. Nice. Thank you. Thank you, Online. That's who we're going to raid. That's awesome. It wasn't up in my list. So, yeah, next week we'll celebrate 25 years of software development on my journey. I'm happy to talk about things, and yeah, we'll talk more. And there is a Discord if you want to join it, and all the videos go up to YouTube. If I find a solution for this, I will post in the Discord as well that it is working, or I found the solution. Because it will be a while before I get back around to this. So, but I'll get this working. So let's go raid Frank. Basheros is a Azure Microsoft employee, an Azure specialist. He's working on a die game, which I'm sure he'll tell you more about. But it's a very great place to hang out, and he's a very, very cool developer. So thank you very much for joining me. Take care. Have a great weekend. I'll see you again soon. Bye all.